All right, guys, welcome everybody.
Good morning.
I'm gonna go ahead and hit record and then we'll get this party started, okay?
That sounds great.
Oh, that looks like we're good. Hello, everybody, and thank you all so much for coming to this webinar. I'm Bobby DeMontney, and today we're going to be talking to Mary Anderson. Mary is a health educator with DPHHS who's been working with us to talk to libraries about clean air spaces and what happens to people during a wildfire and smoke event. Please welcome Mary.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for coming today and um, having an interest in wildfire smoke. Just that I know it's a little bit early to be worried about wildfire smoke in our areas, but I'm hoping that the information that I share with you today will be things that you can use throughout the wildfire smoke season. And hopefully, maybe you won't need it this season, but you'll know where to get it in the future. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oops, there we go. Okay. I work with Montana DPHHS, and I am the wildfire smoke coordinator for the state of Montana. This is a brand new position. It was actually funded last year when we received from the EPA a Montana Clean Air Recognition um, grant. And we'll be talking a little bit more about this as we go through the presentation. But really what we're focusing on is people are aware of the wildfire smoke impacts outdoors, but what we're finding more and more, especially in Montana, as our wildfire smoke season intensifies and gets longer, is that that wildfire smoke is coming indoors and it's affecting especially our most vulnerable populations indoors. So our job is to try to train people about first of all the effects of that, but also to try to develop places in each community where people can go to get clean air. And especially when there's a heat event as well, to get some clean, cool air, just because there's so many people in Montana who don't have access to that. They don't have air conditioning, and they don't have ways to clean their air in their homes. And it's causing some emergency room visits. So we're trying to stop that. Um, the strategies, we had 3 strategies for this clean air recognition grant, and I'll be talking about the first and the third one today. The first one was just to develop some communication and outreach for the public, just to make sure that the public is aware of the real dangers of wildfire smoke. And then the second one is a technical training. So in these areas, you can look and see where our areas are focused. And the reason you can see this is the Rocky Mountains. And what's happening is these are the areas that are very heavily wooded. So they get a lot of Montana fires, but they're also because of the valleys and also the mountain range there, they're getting all the fires from Canada, they're getting the fires from Oregon, from Washington and California as well. And so that smoke there is almost there all summer. So we're trying to make sure we're hitting those areas first with technical training. So letting contractors know how to best mitigate wildfire smoke in indoor settings, and then also to set up some pilot clean air center sites. What we'd like to do, we're going to have 18 clean air center sites in those areas within the next 2 years. And then we will use the information that we get from those sites to try to expand that throughout the rest of the state. Just looking for ways that are low cost and community centers that every community has to use to really give people a place to go when that wildfire smoke has started. My goals today are number one, to just increase your awareness about wildfire smoke and the health impacts so you can better understand that and explain it to those around you. I was in education for a long time and, well, 30 years, and was following the guidelines once we got those outdoor activity guidelines, but I didn't understand why. And so I'm hoping that today's presentation will give you a chance to understand those health impacts as well, why wildfire smoke is so dangerous and things you can do, so you can pass that on. I'd also like to highlight, Bobby has put together a lifelong learning trunk is available for librarians to use with activities in it and information in it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Other resources that are available for you to be able to hand out to your community members. And then I was talking about our Clean Air Center sites. We have 5 libraries that have, in our first round of 6 sites, have volunteered to be Clean Air Center sites. They really are the hub of those smaller communities, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I want to talk about the work that they're doing as well and how you can join if you would like to consider that. I'd like to begin with just some information about the health impacts of wildfire smoke because this is new for a lot of us. This is new research, really. I think the biggest research has begun really within the last 10 years. And so many of us are not familiar with it. We've all seen these activity guidelines before. These are the guidelines that tell you, when the air is good, you can go outside and things are okay. This moderate range right here, this is when you may want to watch people who are more vulnerable, those with asthma, young children, people who are pregnant or who have chronic conditions. And then this unhealthy for sensitive groups, those same groups I mentioned really should be spending more time inside then. And then once that air quality index gets up to over 150, everybody should try to stay indoors as much as they can. These guidelines have become pretty common, and a lot of us are familiar with the air quality index numbers. But I want to talk a little bit about how those developed and why those numbers have become so important. And really, for not just Montana, but a lot of the state, that began with the Rice Ridge Fire in 2017 in Seeley Lake. Uh, a lot of us remember this fire because it was so intense and it seemed like it went for so long. In fact, um, it went for 49 days. They had 49 days of wildfire smoke, started on July 31st, and they had smoke up. The air quality index was 200, average was 220 for that entire time. And what happened throughout the rest of the nation was people were watching this and saying this would be a really good chance for us to get some data about really is there an effect for wildfire smoke. And so they sent a team from the University of Montana up to Seeley Lake right after the fires. There'd been people there throughout the time handing out HEPA air cleaners and trying to help with the public. But this research team that went up afterwards wanted to see if there was some long-term effects from that fire. And so what they did was they took 95 residents who had been there the entire time, and they looked at their lung capacity. And they measured their lung capacity right after the fire. And that is this number right here. That was the lung capacity right after the fire. And their assumption was that air, as you can see here, they thought that the lung capacity would stay the same or hopefully increase, that people would start to get better. What they found was the next year they measured the same people, their lung capacity had actually deteriorated. And as of 2019, it still had not improved, even to the levels that were right after the fire, which was pretty good indication that there are some long-term effects when we're exposed to fire, even if it's not, or for that level of particulate matter, even if it's not for the entire year, there's some effects that happen with those large numbers. They were not able to continue this study, what happened was COVID hit. And so they couldn't get back up after that to keep going with this study. But this was enough of a concern, both in Montana and throughout the United States, that they said we need to start really publicizing those air quality guidelines and making sure people understand the importance of them. The problem with the wildfire smoke particles is a couple of things. Number one, they're really toxic, but a bigger problem is the size. So if you look at, this is a human hair, this long piece right here, that's a human hair. This blue is a dust particle. And if you look up here, this is a wildfire smoke particle and it's a quarter the size of a dust particle. So what happens with wildfire smoke is where if you are in a dust storm or if you're around a lot of pollen, particles are big enough that they get caught in your throat, they get caught in your nose, and they don't make it down to your lungs. But because PM 2.5 is so small, it can go right down into your lungs and it's not filtered anywhere. So when it comes down into your lungs, those numbers that you've seen, the outdoor activity guidelines, those are the numbers that indicate where your lungs are overwhelmed and can't filter it out anymore. So if that particle number is above 150, it's too much for your lungs to filter out without it going into your bloodstream. So none of those numbers are good. They're going to cause inflammation in your throat. They're going to cause inflammation. Your eyes are going to sting. Even your lungs are going to be inflamed. But at that level, that's where it goes into your bloodstream. And that's when it becomes more dangerous. And its toxicity is greater. So there are other PM 2.5 particles. For example, vehicle emissions are 2.5 particles. That's one of the reasons we worry about vehicle emissions. But wildfire smoke particles are more toxic, up to 10 times more toxic than other PM 2.5. The other thing that people don't realize, a lot of us will think that, gosh, if the smoke is coming from Canada or from California, it's become diffused. And it's not going to be, even if the air quality index says that it's still not healthy, it's going to be better because it wasn't close. But what they're finding now, they're doing some studies on this, is that air oxidizes, or the wildfire smoke oxidizes while it's traveling. So it's picking up other toxins. And so actually that smoke can be more dangerous than even the smoke that's local. The other thing that affects PM 2.5 is if structures have burned. So if it's just vegetation, it's still not great, but it's not as dangerous as if there's a structure involved. So a lot of our smoke from California, there's structures that are being burned. And so that does make that smoke more toxic. The same with around you. If cars or buildings or houses are burned, the smoke that's coming from that will be more toxic than regular smoke. And finally, this is why we've started our clean air recognition grants, is that they've done some research all indoors, but about how long does it take for that outdoor air quality to really impact the indoor air quality in an unhealthy way. And they found with really leaky homes, it's about 3.5 hours. For a more airtight home, so even our newer construction, that time is about 10 hours if the wildfire smoke is heavy enough that the indoor air will be the same as the outdoor air without any kind of mitigation. If you open a window or if you're opening a door, that's within the hour, the unhealthy and healthy air quality will be the same. I didn't say this before, but if you have questions, please just raise your hands and ask those questions, or Bobby's following in the chat. I'm happy to answer them as we're going, so you remember why you'd ask those as well. I talked a little bit about the short-term health impacts already, but what a lot of us see in our kids, in ourselves, is that we'll be coughing more and have trouble breathing during a wildfire smoke event. We may not notice this as much, but a loss of appetite or fatigue, they're finding kids have a harder time concentrating. So when they look at kids taking a test during that time, their cognition isn't as good. Their memory is not as good. They're not paying as good of attention in classes. And so what happens is as that wildfire smoke gets into the blood, it's traveling throughout the body and it can get up into the brain. It gets into the brain and so crosses the blood-brain barrier and starts to affect your cognition. There's some recent information. I don't have it in this presentation, but they're linking um, chronic exposure to wildfire smoke to dementia, and it's the same thing. That inflammation that happens in the brain that doesn't really go away, that we don't fully recover from. I want to talk a little bit about our vulnerable population, since I'm with the asthma control unit for DPHHS. And this is really an area that I was a school counselor for and did 504s and was not aware of. I didn't understand why kids couldn't go outside until the level was 150. There was these kids that said they were special and needed to stay inside. And this graphic is a great graphic for anyone who's in a vulnerable population to see what happens. So let's go back to that wildfire smoke particle. What we said was that those numbers represent when your lungs are no longer able to filter out the air. So you think about these vulnerable populations, people with chronic disease or senior citizens, children, especially those children under the age of 5, but all the way up to 17. People who are pregnant, their breathing rates are already higher. And in the case of children, they just don't have that capacity. If you look at someone with asthma, their lungs are already a little bit inflamed and irritated. So they just don't have the capacity to be filtering out those particles at those higher numbers. So this graphic shows where the physician visits are. Now this red is the unhealthy. So this is where most of us would start feeling the effects and know that we needed to stay inside. If you look down here, most of those emergency physician visits, 65% of those happened before it ever got up into the unhealthy range. So when we look at trying to find a place for people to go, this is why. Those people, by the time it gets up to here, a lot of them have already gone to the doctor because they're already feeling those effects. Some of the long-term, I've spoken about this a little bit, but some of the long-term wildfire smoke research, the more chronic conditions, they're linking to lower birth weight babies and preterm labor for women. A lot of this research comes out of the California fires. They just found a lot more preterm births and lower birth weight babies when mothers were exposed to wildfire smoke. Again, their breathing rates are higher and they just, it's causing stress on their system. The lifetime risk of respiratory issues, heart disease, and cancer are becoming more and more accepted as results of wildfire smoke. Reduced lung function, I talked about. This is a very interesting study that just happened last year. They looked at students at University of Montana. So these were young people from the ages of 20 to 30. And they wanted to see if they could predict whether those people were raised in an area with wildfire smoke exposure or not. And they could see that those who were raised around wildfire smoke, they had reduced lung capacity as opposed to somebody who was from out of state who had just moved to Montana. They could see the difference in their lung capacity. Now, these are young kids. And so nobody was on a respirator, nobody was having to go to the emergency room, but it was a good indicator for us that we need to protect our young people better. A lot of our young people just, they're still out working out, or if they're an athlete, they may go into the gym and do a workout during their season, even though it's smoky outside. We just need to do a better job of educating parents and the public um, that we've got to take precautions during that time. Montana had the highest fraction of mortality due to wildfire smoke from 2006 to 2018. We've just seen a huge increase in those fires. And so people who are not able to get to an emergency room, or who don't, maybe weren't diagnosed with a condition, that are finding that we're finding they're not surviving. And so that's another reason, even if we just have a clean air center, and what we'll talk about is respite care. So it's not something that's open 24 hours, but it's a place for them to go. That's another person checking on them. So if they go in our case to the library for 2 hours, somebody has eyes on that person. And if they're worried about them, if they're struggling, it can be somebody that they can get help for. I've talked a lot about indoor air and how indoor air is affected. And this information is all in the library trunk and in our smoke response kit. So you have access to all of this, but I want to make sure everyone understands there's things that we can do, any of us can do in our house, to make a difference in the air quality. And the first one is to get a HEPA air cleaner or a do-it-yourself filter. That is going to filter out about 80%. It says 50 to 80% because it depends on the size of the room. But 50 to 80% of those smoke particles will leave. You can filter those out, and that really makes a difference in your air. A lot of the people who are involved with wildfire smoke and air quality have indoor air monitors in their houses, and they said you can just watch those numbers go down. Once you start that HEPA air cleaner, it does 4 air exchanges an hour, and so it will really filter out that air. The other thing that's most important is closing and sealing your doors and windows. This is something that we can do in the springtime, make sure that we've caulked around our windows and doors, but also just try to keep those closed. Now, if there's a heat event as well, they recommend that that's the most immediate danger for people. So find ways to stay cool. If you have to open a window when the air quality isn't as bad, open the window up, cool your house down, and then close that window back up. If you have air conditioning and your system can handle it, you want to, for the smoke event, take out, usually it's a MERV 8 filter that you use in your furnace. Take that out and replace it with a MERV 13 or higher. The MERV 13 is the first level that will filter out that 2.5. A MERV 8, that PM 2.5 is so small, it's going to go right through your filter. So it'll filter out a little bit, but not as much as a MERV 13, MERV 15, or MERV 16 filter. And then another thing that we just don't always think about is if you have to drive, if you have to travel, make sure your air conditioning is on recirculate. And then in the summer, before wildfire smoke season starts, make sure you have a clean filter in your car. This graphic is also available in the library trunk, and it can be used as a social media post. This is really important for people who can't afford a HEPA air cleaner or a do-it-yourself filter for every room in their house, but know that they want a clean space or need a clean space. This just shows you you can limit the activity to one room for your family. Try to spend as much time as you can in that room and have the HEPA air cleaner going and all of your clean air mitigation happening in that room. And then you move that into your bedroom when you sleep at night, or into the bedroom of the person most vulnerable in your house. Things that are really important here: try to avoid stovetop cooking during a wildfire smoke event. That's just emitting more particles into the air. Don't burn candles. Don't vacuum, which is something that seems kind of counterintuitive, but when you vacuum, you're bringing those particles back up into the air, and people are breathing those particles in again. But this is a lot of our health departments are using this now for their social media. They're just putting that out. When I do this presentation, a lot of people know someone or they themselves work outdoors. Or they have, I have a son who does, who is in sports in the fall. And so they're always looking for, what do I do if I can't diminish that exposure. You know, my husband works construction. They're going outside. Montana does not have laws around that. What do I do? And so we try to give some ideas of things that they can do to help with that inflammation. You think about this is just inflammation in your lungs, right? Um, and throughout the rest of the body. And so John Quindry at the University of Montana has done some research on wildfire smoke fighters or wildfire fighters and has found some things that really do help them get through the season. And he recommends that for others who are exposed to wildfire smoke. The first one is just to stay hydrated. Drink as much water as you can. Have them drink as much water as they can, because that allows the liver and the kidney to better filter out those PM 2.5 particles from the body. So they're just going to be more efficient if they're hydrated. And so keep drinking water during that time. Stay as hydrated as you can. They ask wildland fighters to stop and drink water every 15 to 20 minutes. Um, Prioritize sleep. We all know that our bodies recover best when we're sleeping, whether that's from a hard workout or it is from an illness. We want to rest. It's the same thing. You've got inflammation in your body is sick. And so you want to have your kids or your family members sleep more during that time. Antioxidant foods. Make sure they're eating really nutritious foods. One of the things that they found with wildland fighters were that a lot of times they were just eating MREs. They were trying to get in there, get their carbohydrates in, um, and eat as fast as they could. And the easiest thing was those MREs, and those just contribute to that inflammation. So trying to back off that and try to eat more nutrition-rich foods was really important. And then finally, have them use air cleaner in their room at night. That's just going to give their body a break where it's not working so hard to filter out those those particles. I'd like to get into some activities and resources for some things that you guys could do throughout this summer, either in the middle of a wildfire smoke event or to help your communities prepare for those. We are doing on June 10th, we're doing a lifetime learning evening, but these are some things that you can even just keep in your pocket and you can participate in these or use these when you're looking for an activity for your kids or for seniors in your library. All of these are available on the Montana State Library trunk. So everything I'm going to talk about from here on out, you have access to. Bobby has this on her site. I do have that email or that link at the end of my presentation, but all of these activities will be available here. The first thing that is super, super important is air quality monitoring. We talked about this a little bit already, but the importance of knowing what the air quality is in your facility. Airnow.gov is the EPA site for air quality monitoring, and they actually have a widget that you can download. So if you have a reader board outside that flashes the time and weather, you can also flash air quality to help start making people aware of that. You can download the app and it will give you alerts about when your air quality is going to be worse, and you can do some things there as well. They also have that fire.airnow.gov right here. That actually gives you a fire and smoke map, which a lot of people use just to figure out where the fires are. Like, where is this smoke coming from? They can look on that map and see where the smoke is coming from. They can click on it and see how big the fire is, how contained it is. That information is updated daily. This is the Montana Department of Natural Resources map, and this is a good local resource, well, state resource for us. It also has a wildfire smoke map on there, and you can also sign up for smoke forecasts. We didn't talk about this as much yet, but air quality is not steady. So if you look at any kind of air quality trend, you'll see throughout the day the number is changing. This smoke forecast, if you have young kids, or you can see when to have them go outside. When is a good time? Gosh, I haven't run in 3 days and my husband's ready to kill me. Okay, I know tomorrow morning at 6 there's going to be a better chance for me to go out and run where the air quality is better. So you can look at that and see the best times for those activities. We know that we're always balancing mental health with the health impacts of wildfire smoke, and our kids need to get outside. So it's a good thing to get used to, and to let other people know there are going to be times throughout the day that you can go outside. Have them go outside for a half hour when the air quality is better. The other thing that I just want to mention to you, I see we have people from all over the state. Eastern Montana, we have less air quality monitors over there. And in our more rural areas, we don't have air quality monitors. And the Montana Department of Environmental Quality is really working to change that for all of us. They have a grant where they will give any high school a purple air monitor. You're seeing right here, this is purple air monitors in the Stevensville, Hamilton area. But what these are a low-cost monitor that go on the EPA site, so you can see them, anyone can see them. But it gives you a local air quality index. So for example, Boulder is an area where it's in a valley. They rely on Butte for their air quality right now. There's not an index in Boulder. And so it's very different. So they're not necessarily getting the right numbers. They could be sending kids outside when it's too smoky. And so to have an air quality monitor that is closer and more accurate is really important. My last few years as a counselor, I was in the Helena Valley. So that's 6 miles from Helena. And there were a lot of days that we had indoor recess because our air quality was too low because we were in the valley. And in town, they were having outdoor recess because air quality was okay. So it's important to know if you have a monitor close, and if you don't, that there's free ones available. They're exact enough, they're accurate enough that they will be on the EPA website. So you're helping your community if you can let your schools know about those. These are the resources that I've developed this year as part of our community outreach. This first one is a toolkit for schools. So if you're involved with schools, this toolkit has email messages for principals. It has that they can send both to their teachers so their teachers know what to do for the wildfire smoke event, and to parents to educate parents a little bit about the air quality, why they're keeping their kids inside. There's resources for school nurses. There's 504 recommendations for students with chronic illness. Just things that I did not know about when I worked in the schools. And then there's also lesson plans in there. But they're just things that we were never told. We were told all of a sudden this year, your kids are coming inside if the air quality is this level, but none of us understood why. So this is just a chance to give schools and parents a chance to find out more about air quality. The next toolkit over is one that will be used by emergency managers and health departments, but anyone has access to that as well. And there's resources in there. And this last one is the pilot clean air resource guide that I'm developing for anybody who wants to serve as a clean air center. the libraries that are involved right now have already changed it. All of these are working documents, but this Clean Air Center resource guide, I have checklists in there on what to do before a wildfire smoke event, during and after. And my North Valley Library friends said, you know what, this checklist is too long and complicated. We can't do it. Here's a new checklist for you that's doable. So that is something that you can use if you have ideas about how to make that better. I am happy to hear those. Here are some of the things that are in the resource guide that you can use and download. These are just social media messages. So if you have a social media presence, we have Wildfire Smoke Preparedness Week that will happen in July. We do that in conjunction with Climate Smart Missoula. But that is, I want to say it starts July 12th. And if you wanted to participate in that, we have social media posts you can put up for every day, along with text to go with those. So you can grab the post out of there, and then you can just put in the text and you have that ready to go. We also have other social media posts that are just for every day. If you're in the middle of a smoke event, you can grab one and put it in. This is a flyer that is in most of our documents, but it's a good explanation about wildfire smoke, what happens with the body, and how to keep your indoor air clean. Checklist. You can notice this checklist is on a full 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, because we are planning to translate that to other languages. And when you translate things to other languages, they really need pictures. So even though that could probably fit in a smaller area, we did use a full sheet of paper for that. And then a lot of our materials are translated into Ukrainian, Russian, and Spanish. And those are available in this toolkit as well. We just put together a daycare toolkit, a toolkit for all daycares, and that will be available on our website pretty soon. I just have to make some changes and get that approved, but that is coming as well. And it will also have materials in Spanish. This is also in the toolkit. So if you're looking for a story hour activity during a wildfire smoke event, this is an EPA digital book, but I also have it online. And then there's activities there. So there's what color is your air today worksheet. There's a coloring page. You can also order some air quality flags from there. These air quality flags are just a really good depiction of what color is your air today. So if it's red, then kids know, oh, then that's when I don't go outside. And the Montana health professionals for a healthy climate actually have a grant, and they give those flags away for free. So that information is in the trunk, and it's also available on our website. One of the activities that I really want to promote, it's not mine, is one that the Confederate Salish Kootenai tribe developed, and this is a native resiliency project. It's for educators, so it's science classes, but they have lessons in there about the environment, about the Native American. There's history about how the Native Americans have worked with fire, the health impacts, so things that we've gone over. And then also they do have some air quality where the kids actually can measure air quality and see how it changes. I love this one because they have a lot of interviews from some of the elders in there. They tell traditional stories. That's all available in this toolkit. And it may be something that if you have homeschool students that come into your facility, or just a good thing to highlight in the summer or to share with your schools. I talked a lot about do-it-yourself box fans, and if we were in person, I would show you how to put one together. But there is one of the areas of the trunk is how to do a box fan filter. A lot of the libraries that I'm working with right now have nights scheduled where they're going to put together do-it-yourself box fans. Believe it or not, these are as effective as a HEPA air cleaner. They take longer. But if the room is the right size, these will work. They found that if you set the setting on high for 15 minutes and then lower that number, that you can clean the air in a room, a smaller, medium-sized room, in about 2 hours. So these are very effective, and it's a low-cost way for people who say, I can't afford to have an air cleaner, to show them that there are some options. If you have a box fan, you can pay $12 for a MERV 13 filter, duct tape that on there, and we can make this work. It's just a good way to let people know there are some things they can do. I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the clean air centers, and I'm going to tell you that I did not realize that the first clean air center in California was the San Francisco Library until I started this presentation. Um, but I kind of fell into working with libraries. What we knew was that the clean air centers weren't very utilized. Last year, Ravalli County had one all year long, and they had one person who consistently came there. There wasn't anything to do. It was just a room where they could get clean air and get cool air, get some water. And so people didn't want to take their kids there because the kids would be running around, or, they would rather stay home. And so when I started looking at Clean Air Center sites last year and got this criteria from Montana Tech, what they said was most important, you can see on this criteria list, are things like adequate restrooms, ADA accessibility. A lot of our vulnerable populations need assistance. They need to be able to get into the facility. Um, Storage area for supplies, technology, internet. They needed to be able to get on their Wi-Fi and have a place to charge their phone. Um, and all of those things, as we looked at them, especially in our rural communities, the places that were always available were the libraries. There a lot of places have community centers that are rented out for a wedding or for a funeral or for another event. But libraries seem to be the place that had at least a room, or the facility that people could use where everybody could find something to do. So I was really lucky to work, first of all, with Mark Wetherington at Bitterroot Library. He came on board right away. I got halfway through my sales pitch with him, and he said yes. And he talked to the Darby Library and the North Valley Library and asked if they would consider being sites too. What we know is people aren't going to travel very far. So if Ravalli County is about 60 miles long, so we tried to find some place at the top of the county, in the middle, and then toward the bottom. And all of them are doing different activities this summer. North Valley, I'm going to talk about a little bit more later. They were very hesitant to come on board. Their building's 100 years old, and they weren't sure that they could guarantee clean air. I want to show you their room, and then we've actually had great luck there. They've been amazing, but I want to show you what we've been able to do in that facility for our constituents. Now, we've also, when we looked at Missoula County, we were looking at facilities in Missoula. And we did decide on the Missoula Senior Center there. But what the emergency manager said was, we don't actually need anything in Missoula. Those people can go to the mall, they can go to our big library. There's places that they can go. We need things in the outer areas of Missoula County. And so we looked at Lolo, and the only place they had available was the library. Same thing. And it was a facility that was willing to, they wanted to be a resource for our community. And then Sealy Lake Library, the same thing. That is a community center that people could go to. So the hours are more limited. They're not increasing their hours, but it will be time every day that people can get out of that air, except I think Sundays. Missoula County Library is not one of our official sites, but they are also participating in the program. I talked a little bit about the Sealy Lake Library. We just got back from our site visits, and I wanted to show, this is an area upstairs. So in this area up here in the library, they have this going on upstairs with all the cracks in the windows. And then underneath, they have a cellar that a spring runs through. So they were really worried. They're like, we can't guarantee that our air is clean. But what they've been able to do, they've been able through their filters and then through buying HEPA air cleaners, they've been able to keep their air quality. We have indoor air monitors for them. They've been able to keep that quality consistent and clean, and they just replace their filters more often or check them more often. But they're willing to serve as a site, and we're just going to see how the summer goes. The whole idea behind these pilot sites is what is possible. So we're hoping that, or we're excited to see how that works out, because we think that's going to be really good for other communities where maybe the building they have is older, and we want to be able to show them, I know it's an older building, but you can seal your cracks in your windows. You can get some HEPA air cleaners and you can make a difference for your community. I wanted to bring this. I asked Bobby for this map because this shows all of the areas that are libraries in our state. And you can see on the east side, I know that we are short on resources there. I know it. I before this job, I worked as a sexual assault response trainer and trained nurses. And at one point, there was one nurse between Billings and North Dakota. There was one sexual assault nurse for that entire area. So people were traveling 3 hours to get an exam. So I know that this is an area that needs more resources. And we worked on it there, and we're really working right now on monitoring, and we're working on getting some clean air sites. I think sometimes we forget about the east side of the state, but last year was a really good year for us to see that the fires happen there, and they happen for the entire summer. So what I'd like to do is try to get some more libraries involved. We don't necessarily have funding for those, but we can get started and we can give you some ideas for funding. So if you'd like to participate, we'd love to hear from you. Lastly, these are the resources that I wanted to make sure I shared today. The first one is that those library trunks that Bobby put together. I showed you a picture of those. You can find those on the Lifelong Learning website, and all of the resources we talked about today and many, many more are available there. My website is the Smoke from Fires website, and I'll continue to update that site. And then I talked about a couple of research projects today, the Sealy Lake Research Project and then the Missoula one from last summer. Both of those were done by Chris Migliaccio. In Montana, we are super lucky to have the amount of researchers at University of Montana and Montana Tech that are studying wildfire smoke. But he is on this Health in the 406 podcast. He and I did that together. And it's well worth your time to listen if you want more information about wildfire smoke and some of the health effects, but also some things you can do. And I'm ready for questions. I'm going to quit sharing my screen.
And guys, this is a meeting, not a webinar, so you should be able to unmute yourself if you want to ask any questions, or please feel free to put it in the chat.
Jordan, I can see your question. Do I think the wildfire season will be worse? I think the trends right now are they will be worse. What we're seeing, and because what we're looking at is not just, well, wildfire is different than wildfire smoke, but with wildfire smoke, we're looking at all of Washington, Oregon, and California, as well as Canada. And what's happened, and I'm speaking for people that I'm not a group I'm not a part of. But what happened was that for a long time, for 100 years, we practiced wildfire smoke suppression in the United States and around the world. And that meant that if a fire started, we wanted to put it out as fast as we could. What we did was we just built up a lot of timber and a lot of fuel for those wildfires. And looking at the Native American culture and really what works in our environment is we should have been letting some of those burn naturally because we've changed the landscape, and we also have a lot of dead trees now in those areas. And so the new strategy is to manage those fires and not suppress them. That as long as we're not we're protecting structures, but trying to let some of those forests burn naturally, and give breaks to protect the public. So if that's our new strategy, then we're going to see more wildfire smoke, and it's going to look like these wildfires are burning longer because they're not trying to put the fire out anymore. So it's the right thing long term, but I think you probably are seeing now in a lot of your communities, every day feels like a prescribed burn day. And it's because they're trying to get rid of that dead timber that they just let stay. So yes, I do think for sure we're going to see what more wildfire smoke, and the fires. Just if a fire starts, and you're frustrated with how long it's burning, that's why they're just trying to get rid of some of that dead wood to protect us long term. Thank you for that question. Can I ask a question of the group? And you can just put it in the chat, like, nope, I knew all of this, or I didn't know this. I'm wondering, is any of the information about the health impacts or protecting your indoor air, is that new information for you, or are these things that feel like they're already out there? Okay, good, good. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. At least I know that I'm hitting the right topics that way. Um, if you guys have ways that you would like to thanks, Bobby. If you guys have ways that would be better and more impactful for your communities for me to share that information, I'm happy to do that.
Jordan has added to the chat, we've already noticed some smoke in the air around Billings, and I wasn't sure if it was from wildfires or ditch burns. It's concerning how early on we're already noticing smoke in the area.
Yeah. Yes. So Jordan, if you go to that DNRC site that I talked about, that smoke, um, wildfire smoke. I'm not going to remember the name of the correct name for it, but it will tell you. You can click on that, and they'll have a fire and smoke map, and you can see where the fire is, and it'll say on there whether it's a prescribed burn or not. So the Montana map is probably the one most updated, especially for wildfire smoke burns. Or I'm sorry, for prescribed burns in Montana.
I'm looking for that link now and I'll toss it in the chat.
If you would like me to give more information for your area too, just let me know. I want to make sure we have a grant for such a small part of the state. And I feel like if I can provide resources for more of the state, I really want to do that. It helps us see what everyone else needs. So if my contact information is here as well, please let me know if there's some other things that we can be doing. Um, Again, I can't provide funding for any more of our sites, but if you could get, I would say for sure, purple air monitor, indoor air monitor, if you can, there's a run about $300. Um, um, we could try to find some funds for that in your area. I'm working a lot with the emergency managers. And even in Lewis and Clark County, I've done that just to try to get us up on board. I had an emergency manager from Lewis and Clark County who said that Lincoln didn't have a site and Augusta didn't have a purple air monitor. So I was able to just call those high schools and say, would you be willing to put one up and put them in contact with the right person? So if you guys need help with resources, please be sure to reach out. That's my job. And my job is for the state of Montana. It just happens that we have areas that we're focused on to try to figure out what's best for the state.
And I just threw the eval link in the chat just because that helps me provide quality training to you guys. So please, if you get a chance, click on that and let us know how it's going.
I am happy to stay on as long as you want if you have other questions. If you would like to, so stay on. But that is all I had to present. I just really appreciate you guys taking time today to be here to spread the word about wildfire smoke. I really do feel like we need to protect our kids. And I have and our seniors. Montana has a lot of seniors, and so the more we can find ways to do that and get information out and let people know it is something that they have control of. Everybody can do something to protect their families. I want to make sure we're getting that message out as much as we can. So thank you, and I will stay on. But if you want to leave, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you.